Well, welcome back. Friday, June 12th, 2026. I am Seth Leibsohn. Mr. Bill, welcome aboard. David is out. He'll be back with us, I believe, on Monday. And on behalf of Miss Teresa, delight to have you all, as we try and do every Friday. When we can, we bring in George Khalaf. He is a political consultant. He is a polling guru. He is with Data Orbital and the Resolute Group, but he's also running for office. He is running for State House of Representatives in Legislative District 3 here in Arizona. Excuse me, GeorgeKhalaf.com is his website if you want to learn more about him or help him out. Khalaf is spelled Khalaf. George, good to see you. How are you, man?
I'm good. I was going to make a joke.
Yeah.
Not that, of course, we don't love Bill, but walking in and David's office is dark. All it was missing was like a single candlelight in the window, just like mourning his absence. Yeah. But Bill makes up for it.
Yeah. Bill brings his own light. Bill was my original producer.
I know.
We started with Bill, and then Bill got promoted, and we brought in David. And so anyway, we have a lot of dexterity with the abilities here. Except for me, I don't know how to turn the show on. I've been in this business for 24 years. I have no idea what all those dials.
People ask me sometimes about work or, I mean, none of the back office stuff. Yeah. Honestly, I would be totally lost. I wouldn't even know how to pay myself a salary if it was up to that. So I feel for you. Like, is there a light switch in here?
Right. No.
So yeah, we all face that, but lots happening. Seth,
yeah,
but it's
to
unpack.
I want to, first update on the campaign. How's it going? Things going okay?
Campaign's going very well. We are now in the season where people, for folks and listeners that are not familiar, there's a thing that I probably started hearing about it, not that it was born in this time, but 12 years ago called a golden ticket. Mm-hmm. Golden tickets are slates originated typically in a general election to help people parse through the nonpartisan races, but they've really now been adopted in primaries. And so we have people around the district and different organizations that have started rolling out their golden tickets. And I'm very happy to say that of all the ones that I have seen, and very prominent ones,
you're on them.
I am on them. And the latest one that came out was the Crimson Saguaro, which is really big in the very northeast part of the district.
Oh, great.
So think like Desert Mountain area, which is really, really north in the district. So that's good. Endorsements are continuing to trickle in. I think I had announced this last week, but have met our fundraising goals. So now we're working to any kind of additional that we can add is never bad. But yeah, I feel good.
Good. You should. You look good too. You're doing well. So and happy. You've been happier this past 2 years than the previous. Just some kind of new energy has hit you, and now that you're in it and doing it, I can see you're getting energy from the campaign and the field and the people you're talking to and all that.
I am. I mean, one, I am an extrovert, and so as I've learned as I've gotten older, that means that you get energy from being around people. But genuinely, I got into politics because I love the issues. I care a lot about these issues. I care a lot about fighting for these issues and fighting alongside and on behalf of the great men and women across our state and, frankly, the country when it comes to a lot of these issues. And so it does reinvigorate me to be able to be out and about, to be able to be in the field, to be on the stump. For people that have said that phrase, to be able to get to do that with my family is always a blessing. Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay, good. I want to ask you a big question here. I was talking with some friends of mine, and it's about the person you and I see on the TV screen, Graham Platner in Maine. This is a head-scratcher to me. So the things we knew about Graham Platner for many months was that for 18 or so years he had a Nazi tattoo on his chest that he only confessed to and I guess tried to cover up once he decided to run for the Senate in Maine. He has declared himself a communist in social media posts prior to his running for the Senate in Maine. He has said that the man we refer to as the American sniper Chris Kyle, great hero, his death was justified. He has condemned Purple Heart recipients, saying that they deserved to be shot. And then we find out he's engaged in some, I guess you would say, extramarital texting and something that looks very much like marital infidelity. And that seemed to be the big deal to many in the party and many of the people. There's also some abuse allegations that have been, I think, grossly dealt with. And I think just ignominiously shameful of the Democrats the way they have dismissed the claims against him on that. But, George, what is it about everything I said about the military and the Nazi thing that seemed to be irrelevant to Democrats until it came to the marital and the sex stuff? Why did that bother them so much? And also, it will turn out not to matter, as it has turned out not to matter for the Democrats. They made a big Sturm und Drang about it for about 2 days, and now they all kind of dismiss it and wash it away and, whitewash it is the better term, as, well, it's between him and his wife and the voters of Maine. Weird that was a 2-day story, but also weird that we just don't seem to have standards of care anymore. We Republicans know that we probably couldn't get around most of this kind of stuff most of the time. I'm thinking of Roy Moore. I'm thinking of any number of candidates that we just had to say, no, I'm sorry, we can't have this. David Duke would be a good example. George H.W. Bush reading David Duke. Why was the Nazi and military stuff so ignored? Why was the sex stuff more important, but then immediately dismissed? What's going on here? Standards, and what are the standards?
Well, I think your last question is the problem. I don't know that progressives have any. I think this line that it's between him and the voters of Maine, the voters want him, is very comical because it would be very inappropriate to apply that to David Duke and others in history.
Right, we never would say such a thing. Right.
You remember during his confirmation hearings, you know how much grief Pete Hegseth was given for having
a Jerusalem cross.
Yes, or sometimes referred to as the Crusaders' cross because of what it could insinuate from 1100, right? Not from 1940.
Right.
Okay. And it's a cross, and it's meant to be a symbol of like Christendom. Okay. Obviously, anyone who believes in faith is a Christian nationalist. That's what they were trying to talk. And that was, my memory is not 100%, but I definitely don't think it was just a 2-day story. I think it was wall to wall for a big deal. A number of weeks.
Right.
I think what the Democrats are teaching us is that you get accused of seemingly almost anything. You just put your head down and you just kind of hope you don't get enough pressure from the right people. And for him, the right people were, what does Elizabeth Warren think? What does Bernie Sanders think? Forget the Maine voters. That's not what they're referring to. Is what do his DSA, Democrat Socialists of America, and what do his fellow communist counterparts think? Because they had a candidate that was more mainstream, and she fizzled out. That was Chuck Schumer's pick, and Chuck Schumer was ridiculed to the point where they apparently starved her of money so they could nominate this person. Who, by the way, it seems like it's not going to stop. It seems like there's always something new or some new aspect of the things that are coming out. And so then you have to ask yourself, well, like, are they really willing to give up the seat? And I think it's for them. I don't think that they think it is giving up a seat. I think they think a lot of those things are just par for the course, I guess. And so I don't know. I don't know what to make of, though, the fact that one was at least given some airtime and one wasn't, or the ones, multiple of them, were not. I don't know. I think they're still, I don't know. Is it remnants of the Me Too movement? But to the way that you mentioned,
I mean, that got wiped away this week too.
But they ridiculed her because she's a
Republican.
God forbid, a Republican.
Right.
And I say that in a
the abuse was not light, by the way. It was corroborated, and it was within the past, 5 to 6 years that this woman alleged and had corroborated. She was locked in a room by him. That's false imprisonment. She had her arm twisted by him. She could not escape. This is the kind of abuse. And you went to Pete Hegseth. I'm thinking about no corroboration about a high school story.
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
regarding Brett Kavanaugh.
They tore that man's life apart.
Right.
For months. I mean, that one was crazy.
Right. No corroboration from someone far more sketchy. She couldn't tell the date. She couldn't say where. And her friends denied her ever talking about it until Brett Kavanaugh became a household name. So, yeah, hard to compete in this kind of environment, but also hard to see one of our major parties throwing away any sense or semblance of standards that, in some fairness, they gave to us in the first place. George Khalaf is my guest. He and I will be right back. Welcome back to the Seth Leibsohn Show. With the summer heat here, you should know about Klein Heating and Cooling. They have all your solutions. Flat rate pricing, no surprises as far as any upcharges or anything that you won't expect. Why? Because they will give you a free in-home comprehensive analysis so you get the right solution for whatever your problem may be at the right place. If you do need something new, they will install Trane, Ruud, Carrier, and other HVAC units. If not, they will service what you have. All sizes. They will do residential. They will do commercial. KleinHeatingandCooling.com. Check them out at KleinHeatingCooling.com. Klein is Klein. No job is too big or too small. Some of the reason I was kind of walking around this issue of standards with you, George, is you are in the profession of, among other things, campaign consultancy. And I happen to know the profession a little bit, and I know that, people do opposition research. If a client or prospective client comes to you, you're going to ask about skeletons. You're going to say, what are we going to find? More importantly, you're going to say, what are they going to find? And I'm sitting here saying, does it even matter anymore? Does it even matter anymore? Right around 1997, when this scandal broke between Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky, Bill Bennett wrote a book called The Death of Outrage. People were not outraged, it seemed, and they justified it on two grounds. If they were a Democrat, they said, we'll put up with anything so long as he's mostly pro-choice. They used very graphic language to talk about this. You may recall some of what I'm referencing. And the other definition was as long as the economy is okay, which I thought was a weird thing to think about when you think about we are now going to tie our moral standards to economic conditions, meaning that we should only have standards. We should only have standards if the economy is not good. It seems to me we should have the greatest of standards when the economy is at its best. There's much more mischief that can be made, as you well know, from great wealth than from great poverty. Are we finally at peak death of outrage?
Yes. I think we have been.
Lift that mic just.
I think we have been for various reasons over the last 10 years, changing the way that you viewed crises, and I think we're at a position now where, because our political dynamic is as intense as it is, that I don't know what has to happen from either party for folks to be outraged enough for something to move, like from within the party. I mean, we've seen it happen with Eric Swalwell, but it fit their interests because they needed in that scenario, they needed to consolidate the field because they couldn't allow at that point, if folks remember, Hilton and Bianco were polling in the top three.
That's right.
In the California governor's race. Right. Who else was a recent one? You'd have to go back to Cuomo in New York, but he was kind of past his time. He's made a comeback. I mean, like, you see what I'm saying, or attempted comeback, and he was the standard bearer at that point in the mayoral race. And so there's not a lot of ways and reasons to be outraged anymore. I think the thing that still causes people to be outraged is a lie.
Okay.
So I think people, ironically, if you just kind of own up to it, which in an odd way, I mean, and I hate to even say this because so much of what Platner has done and continues to do is just deplorable and disgusting, but like, he's kind of owning it. And so I don't know, are voters giving him a pass? I mean, I've never visited Maine. I don't know what's happening on the ground, but like, is it enough to be like, yeah, well, I had the tattoo, but I covered it up, or yeah, this is, like, he's kind of, I don't know. He's sort of in a way, wrapping his arms around it, kind of like with a sinking ship. It's very strange.
Can I push back with you just a little bit on the forgiveness of the lie? You might be right, but I might be right when I say I'm not even sure if a lie matters or a great many lies matter anymore. We as a society or a culture have been exposed to so many lies that that I think sometimes we either can't tell what the truth is or we don't care anymore. I mean, I could walk us through, as you could easily do the same throughout COVID. We got used to so many lies about everything, from its origins to how to treat it to the efficacy of vaccines and the need for them. I mean, just all kind whoppers, huge whoppers. With a lot of people in candidate world, I see a lot of lies being told still by a lot of politicians that seem to get a pass. I see a lot of it in podcast world. I see a lot of people lying through their teeth in podcast world, particularly where they're confronted with the truth and just the next day happens and we just start from scratch. I wonder if the power of the lie has lost its poignancy in so many cases, and I wonder if it's possible to sustain. I mean, I don't mean to be extreme about this, but I do sometimes worry how a country dedicated to a proposition built on truth can sustain itself when it is so willing to accept so many grand lies.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. I think. I mean, it is a very complicated question because of this reason. The answer is unlike when you're first learning equations. I was a big math geek growing up, and the first set of equations you remember doing in school were what? There was one variable, maximum two, and you have the other, the other knowns, and then you solve it out. Yeah. And then I made my way up to, for example, Calculus 2 in high school. Well, those are far more complicated, and I feel like we're in a Calculus 2 scenario, meaning this. There are not one or two variables. There are like 100 variables and different reasons. And so, yeah, there are people, I will also admit this, there are people that get away with highway robbery, right? I think Platner is at least so far. Sure. I don't think he's going to win in the general, but so far. And there are people that kind of get the short end of the stick relative to their situation much quicker because they're in a scenario that, well, okay, we can kind of give you up. You could be the
sacrificial lamb.
The sacrificial lamb.
Right.
That's thank you. I wasn't thinking of the phrase. So it is very complicated, and politics plays a part. Politics plays a part because we are a two-team dynamic. Yeah. There are Republicans and there are Democrats.
Yeah,
and that is it. And we are miles apart on the vast majority of issues that are consequential to the future of this nation.
Now, my thesis is we are Republicans and we are Democrats, but my thesis is we are pretty soon going to become Republicans and DSA. You look at this trend. You and I were looking at the primaries of last week and the results that redounded from them. It will be interesting to see what happens with the L.A. mayor's race. People talk about Karen. It's funny how you constantly have to lower the threshold of what's a moderate Democrat.
She's running to Karen Bass's left.
I know. And Karen Bass is effectively a communist who bewailed the death of Fidel Castro and was part of the Venceremos movement.
She's running to her left.
Right, exactly. And I was taking note of the thought that even the Maine governor, the Maine governor was the woman, let us not forget, who stood up to Donald Trump in the White House earlier last year, saying that she will defend boys competing against women in sports and bathrooms. I mean, and that's the moderate, right? We are defining deviancy down, but we are defining moderacy down, or up. I'm not sure which. I do think that's where the parties are going to go. And I think we're going to see a lot of it revealed after July 4th and seeing how the various parties handle their celebration of this country's birthday. Can we talk about that when we come right back?
Let's do it.
George Khalaf is my guest. GeorgeKhalaf.com, candidate for State House of Representatives, Legislative District 3. Be right back. Welcome back to the Seth Leibsohn Show, coming to you from the YRefi.com studios. George Khalaf is my guest, Khalaf. I spell it, so in case you would like to go to his website, GeorgeKhalaf.com, candidate for State House of Representatives and Legislative District 3. It is worth noting, before we get back to this other point, George, it is worth noting there has been a cleansing of some lunacy and some intolerables that we won't have to deal with. Eric Swalwell is one. He will not be in the Congress next year.
Yeah.
Jasmine Crockett will not be in Congress next year.
I know, but somehow she lost to maybe a more insane person in a way. I mean, Tallarico,
even if she won, she wouldn't be in Congress next year.
I know, right. No matter what. But like, I can't believe how we are. You had said it on the end of the last break. I just honestly, and I really, she is one of the worst members of Congress. Somehow,
maybe somewhat better than Tallarico.
Tallarico, yeah. I think, is worse.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. He has no shot, though.
I mean, he can't have a shot. I mean,
he can't have a shot.
Polls are coming out showing
we're moving somewhere if he has a shot.
Polls are coming out showing that it's close, but and I really hate these. People take a photo of. I don't know what's up with us taking photos of people eating. By the way,
I'll tell you what it's about.
But do I need to be mindful of when I eat? If I make
no.
Apparently the way he eats barbecue. Now I will say I don't think I've ever eaten barbecue in the way that he's eaten barbecue, or eaten anything maybe in the way that he's eaten barbecue.
Because it's unnatural for him to eat barbecue. He was a vegan. And this is a problem. And that's why they are taking pictures of him eating meat, just like they were taking pictures of Tim Walz changing tires on his truck, to make him look like a real guy. Or who was the guy before Tallarico that was such a weirdo that had pictures of him trying to change a tire?
Beto O'Rourke.
Beto O'Rourke changing the tire on his truck. It's because you can't have a vegetarian running for Senate in Texas.
So you said something about political consulting earlier. I'm going to just give free advice for everyone listening.
No pictures.
No, pictures are fine. My advice is if you're thinking about running for office, maybe just run for an office that you're a fit so that you don't have to do things that you are not. And that is a big thing. And I know that we're joking, but sincerely, I mean, there's nothing more serious that I've ever advised clients is don't pretend to be something that you're not. So don't be a coastal elite progressive running for the Senate in the state of Texas because barbecue and meat and guns and just being a man is a big part of culture, right? And Tallarico's pretending to be all kinds of things.
How about not being a Bible thumper if you're not?
Well, that's another thing, pretending to be a Christian.
I shouldn't have put it that way. That's a pejorative term. I didn't mean it that way.
Yeah, but I know what you meant. I just in general, though, people.
How about pretending not to be an adherent of the Bible when you're not?
That's
how I should.
Don't pretend.
Right.
If you believe, you believe. Look, I'm not a perfect person. As I always say, as Christians, we all know that we are fallen. We can get into that at some time of why and how and what I believe there. But in my beliefs, you and I have hours and hours and hours.
Christian is the first word on your.
It is on the
website.
first word. And so what that means is that you and I have hours and hours and hours of my thoughts on air.
Yeah.
And my thoughts have been consistent for years. Now, do people change maybe the application? And my opinions could vary to a degree, but I don't wake up one day and I had some fundamentally different belief on core issues. Right. All of my core issues have been the same essentially since I formed those beliefs.
Since I met you, certainly 12 years
since
ago,
I was probably since I was like in my late teens. I was debating people after church. That's what I did for fun, Seth. I would bring a portfolio to debate people at church.
Did you really?
Oh yeah, I'm a nerd. I can't help it.
You would debate people after church.
After church, I would bring a folder, not just debate. I would bring my references. This is how badly I am. Very competitive. See, Bill's nodding. I'm a very competitive man, so I would bring a folder so I could reference my notes because I would debate about geopolitical considerations too. I'm 17 debating about geopolitical considerations. So there you go. You learned something new about me today.
Just wondering about what your church members thought of you. Here comes George.
They thought I was very intense and sometimes was like, can we just play basketball or football or do things that 17-year-olds do?
I know you can play chess too. I'm sure they would have welcomed a chess game.
Anything but me grilling them on geopolitical considerations and historical context.
I lost it on this second. I'm sorry. Picture of George bringing folders to church. Binders of policy.
That's what I was doing. So all that to say, to wrap it back up, look, policy is important and being true to yourself is important. And again, our country is in a better spot, of course, when people are themselves. So then we can pick. You're a progressive, own that you're a progressive, and then we're going to vote you out. If you're a conservative, own that you're a conservative, and then we're going to vote you in.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about some policy when we come right back and connect it to what I was saying earlier that I did mean to get to, which is the divide over July 4th. George Khalaf is my guest, Khalaf, and he won't tell you what church he goes to, so you can easily go straight to the lemonade stand. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Seth Leibsohn Show, coming to you from the YRefi.com studios. YRefi refinances distressed or defaulted private student loans, the kinds that others won't touch. What they'll do is they'll provide you with a custom loan payment based on your ability to pay and reduce your monthly payment as is, ensuring affordability and financial relief. And guess what? YRefi does not care what your credit score is. So if your private student loan is just ruining your life, if it is becoming a mountain of debt you can't see past, it doesn't have to be that way. Give YRefi a call. 888-YREFY85. 888-YREFI85, or check them out at YRefi.com. I want to connect two thoughts with you, George Khalaf, on something I've been meaning to get to. Terrible to see here. Just a recent Gallup poll. 32%, so a third of Gen Z Democrats say they have no pride in being an American. A third of Gen Z Democrats. And you can see all kinds of numbers that replicate this kind of thing. At the same time, I'm watching all kinds of stories vis-a-vis, and I see it, just as you see it in we're both educators of different types. What younger generations seem to know less and less, not just American history, but everything. There's a story out this week, national story you may have seen. Our 13-year-olds' math abilities have now dropped to where they were in 1990. We were not doing well. We were making increments, and then we had a huge fall off, and now we've just lost all the gains we've made pretty much since 1990, and we're back to 1990 standards with our 13-year-olds. One of our worst performing moments in math in our lifetime, if not the worst. George, it's hard for people to understand important things or to understand things rightly when they're miseducated and uneducated. It's easy to warp and propagandize young minds when they don't know any better. I worry about connecting these two things, and I think we have to do a better job of connecting these two things because our young people just don't know much anymore. And what they think they know, they don't. But what they think they know, they will hold dear and ardently when it comes to things that you are so passionate about, like the fact that you live in this country and you love this country, and they don't. And it's generating a whole new crop of Democrats where the governor of Maine who supports trans rights in the extreme is the moderate, where Karen Bass, the communist in L.A., is the moderate. We can do this about New York City. We can do this about New Jersey 12. We can do this about the Senate race in Michigan. We can do this about too many places. These are young people's movements, and they're movements propelled by ignorance.
Where do we learn from? We learn from our parents. We learn from culture. And we learn from school. So if parents are not teaching, or worse yet, are teaching the opposite, culture, we know there's been a shift in the last couple of years. And again, thank God for people like Charlie Kirk who frankly compelled that shift. But in general, the prevailing sentiment in culture is to not be pro-America. We all remember the times when almost all of us wrote off major sports because seemingly every time we turn on the news, ESPN and on sports teams and
it's
these
an anti-America fest.
We're getting into this anti-America fest and everyone was kneeling in this ridiculous
Two national anthems. Yeah.
And then you get to school.
Right.
And we know what's happened there.
Right.
And so, there's a segment and we talk about the divide consistently in culture. Well, that divide's going to grow. Why? Mm-hmm. Because there are parents like me and Brianna and many others who are going to be teaching our kids. Mm-hmm. And we're sending our schools where they're teaching our kids. And we are allowing them to engage in culture that's also going to teach our kids in that way. And that we are proud to be Americans and we are going to be reinvigorated in that love. Especially, I'm so animated by our 250th because of that. I remember how I was raised. I remember the values that my parents instilled in me. Now as a 35-year-old, I look back at multiple moments of my life that both my mom and my dad did things or said things to me that are the underpinning of so many of my other beliefs that grew. Those are the roots, and now that root has turned into a tree, and that tree now has branches, and those branches have leaves, and so on and so forth from there. But if we don't give that to our children, it's going to be a problem. But I will say there are many more parents giving their children that.
Yeah.
And so then that makes the divide with those that are not getting it. That gulf is only going to get wider.
That's what gives me a little bit of optimism. The demographics are on the conservative side, are they not? They're the ones that
We're the only ones having kids.
Children. I was just going to say children. Right. Yeah.
We're the only ones having kids.
Right.
They apparently they don't know what to do with children. I mean, so many stories, especially one very pointed one that's heavy on my heart that we don't need to get into, but like of people just professing these very, I believe, backwards thinking about children. And man, children are, to say a blessing is an understatement. That doesn't mean everyone has kids. Some people aren't able to have kids, and I get all that. But to fundamentally shift the conversation around children. And so, yeah, conservative Christians were the only ones having children anymore, and having children in any amount of time where you could have more than one or two, right? And so that would make it. So, look, Democrats, they're riding themselves into a corner here because in 50 years, they've been anti-children. They've been anti-marriage in a way that you can actually procreate and have children. And so, and all of these things, well, where's that going to leave them? Then what they have is the third piece. They have the education, which is why we have to die on that hill. We cannot let them reclaim. We cannot let them fundamentally shift additional generations as they attempted with the millennial generation. And because Gen Alpha actually is probably going to be and is on pace to be more conservative. So my kids' generation, more conservative than their Gen Z and their millennial counterparts, because they've seen how all of these things have played out. And now their social influences, it is cool to be conservative. And so, I mean, my kids, not just because of me, they know who Charlie Kirk is. They talked about it at school. Their friends, I mean, they're 10 and 8. They knew what he represented and all that. So it's, times are changing. And the left, look, there's a saying that my parents said growing up and is common in Lebanese: nothing is true but the truth. That means that in the long run, the truth always prevails. Because we know God's truth always prevails in the long run. In the short run, evil can prevail in the moment, and a lie can prevail. But we know that the truth is always going to dominate in the long run. And I think the progressive left is going to be faced with that truth. They're faced with that truth now in a way, and they're going to be faced with that more and more as time goes on.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing about relying on the truth prevailing, because yes, I'd like to believe it so at an eschatological or theological sense, to be sure, but it requires people to stand up and fight for it and have courage in doing so. And I think one of the great things that this conservative movement, this younger conservative movement, has done is shown that it's okay to stand up and talk the truth and speak the truth. I think that's I think there was a lot of cowing, a lot of intimidation to shut up and be silent about it. You certainly saw it on the college campuses, and I think it happened at a lot of, and frankly, too many in the high school level. One wonderful thing, maybe one of the most successful things not spoken about enough, is the Trump administration's efforts to clear all that brush out. Their campaign against DEI and the Harmeet Dillon campaign against circumscribing conservative speech.
Yeah.
Because simply we were living under a tyranny, and I think too many people just accepted the fact that we were living under a tyranny and a model that treated conservative thought as second or third class, and that's just no longer the case. George Khalaf's my guest. We'll be right back. Portions of this show brought to you by CMI Gold and Silver, CMIGS.com. I've been endorsing them for a long time now. If you're interested in purchasing precious metals, gold, silver, others, CMI Gold and Silver is well known for their customer service and their low pricing. I also think it's worth pointing out that there's a lot of precious metals dealers come and go. CMI Gold and Silver started here in Phoenix in a little small office in 1973 and has only grown and grown ever since. And they have been helping now clients nationwide for over 50 years as now the nation's oldest precious metals dealer, longest-lasting precious metals dealer, CMIGS.com. George and I were just kind of, pardon the pun, spellbound by a story on cable news, I guess about a new phenomenon of sorts. Maybe it's not a phenomenon, but a new excitation of brides hiring witches to bring good weather to their weddings. Larger point about a silly ephemeral, which is, George, one can get very down on the culture and the country by paying too much attention to some of this stuff.
Yeah.
You know, some of this stuff makes the news because it's like, really? It's a big country. And I know you always like to end on a positive note. And Twitter isn't the real world, and Podcastistan isn't the real world. The last segment or the final block of a Fox News story isn't the real world. No. There is a real world here.
Seth, not that I was alive in many of these times in history, but as a student of history, they've been really dark times in our nation and in this world. Yep. I mean, darkness that literally stamped out hope from the souls of men and women.
Blew out moral lights. Yep.
And I want, as a call to fellow patriots, fellow conservatives, that we should not lose heart, that there are a lot of men and women fighting for you, fighting behind the scenes, fighting out in public, that we should be reinvigorated. We are nowhere near the darkest time in our history. Right. Not even close. Not even close. That we should always, and I'm going to say this, frankly, probably every time we're together, that we should fight from a positive and optimistic culture, because we know at the end of the day our outcome is not in the hands of man, and I mean man as in men and women. Our outcome is in the hands of God, and I am grateful for that. But that does not mean that we ever stop fighting. But there are so many people fighting the good fight, and we are making advances, and we are grateful for men like Charlie Kirk, for people like President Trump, for Vice President France, for Marco Rubio, for men like you, Seth, who use your voice for good and to teach and to educate. And I am so grateful. I'm so grateful for all of you and for the ability to be able to fight alongside you.
And men like you who are willing to stand up and run for elective office. GeorgeKhalaf.com. Running for the State House of Representatives in LD3. Thank you, George, for everything. I'm Seth. We'll be right back.